You've heard it a million times, right? Maybe you've even said it yourself. Oh, I'm a visual learner. It's an idea that's everywhere, in our schools, in our offices, but what if the whole thing is built on a giant misunderstanding? Well, today we're going to put the incredibly popular idea of learning styles to the test and see what the science really has to say.
So think about it for a second. How do you prefer to learn something new? I bet an answer just popped into your head, didn't it? Maybe you thought, oh, I've got to see it to get it, I'm totally a visual learner. Or maybe, nope, for me, I have to actually do it, I'm kinesthetic all the way. We all have these preferences for sure.
And usually this whole idea gets boiled down to these big four categories: visual, auditory, reading/writing, and kinesthetic. You might see it called the VARK model. And look, this isn't just some casual idea people toss around. It's a massive industry. I'm talking quizzes, corporate training seminars, entire educational programs, all built on this one simple concept.
Come on, we've all done it. We've taken the quiz, we've gotten our label, our little badge of honor, and we've maybe even used it to explain why we're struggling with something. But what happens when we stop just accepting it and start asking the hard questions? What does the science actually say? Does matching the teaching to your style actually help you learn better?
To get to the bottom of that, we have to zoom in on the one specific testable claim that the entire learning styles empire is built on. It has a fancy name, but the idea is simple. It's called the meshing hypothesis.
Okay, so here's what it all boils down to. The meshing hypothesis says that for learning to be most effective, the way you're taught should mesh perfectly with your preferred style. So a visual learner learns best with diagrams and videos, and an auditory learner learns best by listening to a lecture. It sounds so intuitive, right? It just makes sense. But for this whole theory to be valid, this one claim has to be supported by solid evidence.
And you know what? Scientists have a very specific way to test a claim like this. There's a sort of scientific gold standard, an experimental design that you absolutely have to use if you want to prove it one way or the other.
So, how do you really test this thing? It has to be super rigorous. You can't just ask people, hey, did that feel good? To get real proof, you have to follow 3 critical steps. 1, you sort people into groups based on their supposed learning style. 2, you randomly give people from each group a different teaching method. Some get a visual lesson, some get an audio one. And 3, this is the most important part, you give everyone the exact same final test to see what they actually learned.
All right, you've run the perfect experiment. What are you looking for in the data? What's the smoking gun? Well, for the learning styles theory to be true, the results have to show a very specific pattern. It's called a crossover interaction, and it's the only result that would count as proof.
Let's really break this down, because this is the whole shebang. For the theory to be proven, you need to see what's on the left. The lines on the graph have to physically cross. That means visual learners did way better with the visual lesson, and auditory learners did way better with the audio lesson. The best method for one group was the wrong method for the other group. Now look at the right side. This is not proof. Here, one method, the visual one, was just better for everybody. Sure, the lines are separate, but they don't cross. For the theory to be true, it's not enough that you learn a little better with your preference. The other method has to be worse for you. Okay, so that's the high bar for scientific proof. Now for the moment of truth. Let's look at the verdict. What has decades of research actually found?
This quote, this is basically the mic drop. It's from a massive landmark review of all the research, published back in 2008. After sifting through everything, a team of top psychologists came to a very clear, very blunt conclusion. There is just no good evidence to justify using learning styles in schools or at work. That's a pretty big deal.
So how many studies did these researchers find that actually used that gold standard experiment we talked about and found that crucial crossover interaction? How many studies prove the meshing hypothesis? The number is 0. A big fat 0, not a single one. Despite thousands of articles and a billion-dollar industry, the core scientific proof just isn't there.
So let's break that down. First, there's a mountain of papers written about learning styles, but almost none of them use the right kind of experiment to actually test the idea. Second, the handful of studies that did do it right found absolutely no evidence to support it. And maybe wildest of all, some studies found the complete opposite. They found that students sometimes learned better when they were taught in a way that mismatched their supposed style.
Okay, so if learning styles are a myth, where does that leave us? Is it just a free-for-all? Not at all. In fact, cognitive science points us toward a much more powerful and frankly more hopeful way to think about how we learn.
So let's compare these two worldviews. The learning styles myth puts you in a box. It tells you you're a visual learner and that's just a fixed thing about you.
it can be super limiting. The scientific reality is what we call multimodal learning. It says that all of us are flexible and adaptable. The goal isn't to find your one style, it's to build a whole toolkit of different strategies that you can pull from depending on the situation. And this, right here, is the fundamental shift. The most effective way to learn something isn't determined by you, the learner. It's determined by the content you're trying to learn. Think about it. It's not that you're a visual learner, it's that learning geometry is an inherently visual task. You need to see the shapes. It's not that you're a kinesthetic learner, it's that you literally cannot learn to play the guitar without physically touching it. The method has to fit the material, not some arbitrary label you've given yourself.
So, here's the big takeaway. Let's ditch the labels. The learning styles myth, even though it was probably well-intentioned, can actually hold us back. It gives us a fixed mindset about what we can and can't do. So instead of asking, what's my learning style, let's start asking a much more powerful, much more useful question. What's the best strategy to learn this specific thing? Because when you focus on the content instead of the category, you stop being just one type of learner and you start becoming a much more effective learner, period.